I'm joined today by Monica von Schmalensee, and she's Deputy National Architect for the Swedish government. She's also a senior partner at White Arkitekter. White is Scandinavia's largest architectural practice, which is now very active, working in the UK. And Monica is also president of the Swedish Council of Sustainable Cities. And she's also a regular judge for the NLA annual awards. So Monica, how are things in Sweden right now with regard to the pandemic?
It's not normal yet, but I think it's more normal than if I would live in London, really. So looking out, I'm on my in our apartment here in Stockholm, the center of Stockholm. It's sort of a normal life on the street. The restaurants are open and people are walking slowly. And there are fewer buses, though. People are cycling and walking a lot more, of course. And what's interesting in Stockholm is it's in the CBD area, it's almost empty. There are hardly enough people working downtown, which means that will be also a strategy for the future offices if they will keep working from home or not. So what kind of office buildings will we see in the future? So that's a big debate about that. But also because of people don't go downtown anymore. Some people might go to work, but not so often. So I think people are mainly staying in their local neighborhoods, which means that they will grow. The suburbs really will be more local and people will start to shop in their neighborhoods. We can also see that there is a renaissance for the small, medium towns, really. We believe that people will move to the smaller towns or the mid-sized towns where the rent is not so high, and it will be also a possibility maybe to commute. But since we can now work with the internet and we very well connected, people then can adjust their working conditions much better. So we might see transformation, I would say, maybe from just to live in the big cities, as we have had that as a strategy for many years, to people move around. And also a big debate right now is about that people have less income. There's a lot more people who are unemployed, so they don't have any income at all, which means they also, where shall they stay? So there's a big debate about that, really, an ongoing debate, not just about the COVID-19 as a pandemic, but also because of all the social issues.
So your comment about people acting more locally fits in quite well with the Council of Sustainable Cities vision for inclusive and accessible urban environments that are green and compact, in which people can get around using walking and cycling. So looks like COVID-19 will make that sort of environment, which the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, described as a 15-minute city, much more likely.
Yeah. Well, we really hope so, but then there is another discussion if it's so strong pressure on the economy. So, all this kind of, the more sustainable way or the healthy or the greener cities, if that is something that will really not be on priority as much as just going back to normal jobs and not, for instance, cars is a good example of that. Now, here, people have used cars much more because people don't like to go into public transport, which means that people will own their own car. You can see, especially on the roads, there are a lot of cars right now. People are sitting one person in each car. And that was sort of a strategy that we were against for a long time, that people should use public transport a lot. But now people don't feel so safe in public transport. So we have to kind of reorganize and redesign probably public transport, I believe. Even so, people are now going by walking much more and going by bikes, of course, much more. And we have more bike lanes than London, but I think it's interesting to follow the cities around the world, around their bike strategy and walking strategy. As you mentioned, for instance, the mayor of Paris with 15 minutes walk or 15 minutes ride. And you can see it in Milano and in Bogota and different places all around the world. Cities do have now a new strategy, and hopefully then this new strategy will also continue after the crisis and as a way of planning and of a longer commitment and a more holistic way in planning, I suppose. I hope so, at least. So I think it's going to be very interesting to follow. And I also believe that those cities that have the green strategy, even London has now the new Green Deal, for instance, which I think is a very good, and hopefully this will also change London a bit with new bike lanes, but also to see how you redesign the high streets or, you know, the local parks, but also the small pavements between and the spaces between buildings, because they seem to be even more important than the big, huge parks that we have. So these small little pavements, I think, is going to be even more important, especially if we will see all other kinds of pandemics that will arise in the future. I mean, this will probably not be the last one. I don't think so. So I think to put the climate on top, as Greta Thunberg, who has the first radio speech 2 days ago on Midsummer Eve. Mm-hmm. You know, each day at 1 o'clock, there is a person who will talk in the radio and then play some music. And she was the first person then to open this year. So it was lovely to listen to her again, because she is so exact when it comes to, when she says, you have to trust the scientists. That's what we have to do.
So from the sort of things you're saying, though, I'm getting the impression that the centre of cities are going to face a number of issues of getting people back into them and maintaining the sort of agglomeration, which has been their economic success for so long. How do they fight back, do you think?
It seems like we have been divided, you know, cities into different areas where, you know, this is a working area, this is a living area, this is so and so. So I think hopefully in the future we will see more of a mixed use, even in the center of cities, not only as working places, and also the transformation of existing buildings into maybe living or apartments, and not only apartment buildings, but to see this, how do we transform the already built environment. I think that's going to be a big strategy, and also the way we live then in this area. So this, I mean, all this about circular economy, for instance, how can we use already, I mean, most of the buildings are already built. I mean, we have to redesign and really transform the buildings that are already here, but how do we do that? And who has, and how will the economy recover from this as well? Because in one sense, of course, we need the building industry to recover part of the economy. That is very important. But in what way do we do this? So I think hopefully there will be a good strategy to see how we can reshape, redesign, and then put a lot more focus on the greener the city, and see that as more beneficial for everybody.
So you mentioned Greta Thunberg, and of course before coronavirus started hitting the headlines, it was really climate change, which was really right at the top of the agenda.
Yes.
But now it does seem to have dropped down a bit, because obviously there are other more pressing matters on politicians' minds.
Yes.
Do you think coronavirus will have made us feel more aware of, might say, our fallibility as a race?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the ordinary people, us, you and me, for instance, we then believe that this is even more important than ever, when we can see how this physical environment and the way we live, how this is really the importance of this, as we had like 100 years ago in Garden City. So this has been, of course, an issue, or even historically, when you go back to how we have shaped our cities. But I think that now, if you want to be re-elected, you have to take some of these facts into consideration, not only, you know, the economics. Of course, that is very important that you get your job back, but also to do that in a good way, and that you feel responsible for your choices. And those politicians who don't care about the healthcare issue, for instance, it's going to be really hard to get re-elected, because that's a big debate right now. And also to see how you can build sufficient homes for people with lower income. That's going to be sufficient as well. and how we redesign the landscape outside those homes is going to be a very important, I think. So, and we now there is a new a law coming up for the procurement document, which is a lot to do with quality in the living environment, not only for the lowest price, which that's the local authorities that can really put pressure on our industry on. And of course, architects are ahead of these, some of these questions. But if we have, you know, better procurement documents in the planning process, maybe that is a good way to really to improve the quality of the design, but also in the built environment. So I think that's it's gonna help really. I hope, hopefully.
This is new legislation going through the Swedish Parliament.
Yeah, they're starting to do that right now.
Right.
And also to see.
Is this something we should be copying in Britain, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is an ongoing work now that has really started. But I think it's good that you point out that the lowest price is not always the best product, because when it comes to how we design our living environment, I think quality is very, very important. But I mean, this is an issue also, of course, an issue ongoing in London with the Mayor of London and GLA. And I think all these discussions around this is just as important as the discussions we have in Sweden, and also lessons learned from different countries or different cities are also going to be very important, I think, after the post-corona, you know, thinking what will happen afterwards and how we can continue to have our international contacts and lessons learned from different cities is going to be even more important, I think, in the future. So otherwise it will be too much localism.
I think perhaps that sharing between cities is a great thing to continue doing. And thank you very much, Monica, for your insights. And we look forward to continue sharing with Stockholm ideas about how we make our cities better and more sustainable in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Bye-bye.